The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. What if everything you believed about a person was a lie? What if the silence said more than words ever could? A woman is found with her husband's dead body and never speaks another word. For years, she sits in silence while the world tries to understand why. Her husband lies dead. The evidence is clear, but her motives remain locked away behind eyes that reveal nothing, lips that refuse to confess. A brilliant psychotherapist becomes obsessed with this case. He needs to know her truth. He needs to break through her silence at any cost. Reading this book feels like being drawn into a psychological maze. Every page whispers promises of revelation while keeping its secrets locked away. The narrator's obsession becomes your obsession. His need to understand mirrors your desperate hunger for answers that seem impossibly out of reach. What makes this story unforgettable isn't just its twist. It's how that twist reframes every single moment that came before it. The book explores the dangerous territory where therapy becomes manipulation, where healing becomes harm, and where the line between patient and doctor disappears. And just when you think you understand the silence, the truth shatters everything you believed about healing and harm. Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Amy Dunn vanishes without a trace from her home. Her husband becomes the prime suspect. The police arrive. The media swarms. Everyone wants to know, where is Amy Dunn? And why does her husband seem so calm? The evidence starts pointing in one direction. But in this marriage, nothing is what it appears. Nothing can be trusted. This book doesn't just tell a story. It dissects the anatomy of a toxic relationship with surgical precision and devastating accuracy. Reading it feels like watching a car crash in slow motion. You can't look away, even as everything burns around you. Flynn masterfully manipulates your sympathies, making you root for characters who might be monsters, suspect heroes who might be victims. The story explores how love can become a weapon, how marriage can become a battlefield, and how truth becomes whatever story sells best. And then you discover what really happened to Amy Dunn. Everything breaks. Verity by Colleen Hoover. You're hired to complete a book series for a famous author who's been paralyzed in an accident. You move into her home to work. Her husband is charming, attentive, but then you discover something hidden in her office. A manuscript, not published, not meant for anyone's eyes, and the words on those pages reveal something deeply, disturbingly wrong. This book blurs the line between fiction and confession in ways that will leave you questioning everything you read. It doesn't just tell a story, it becomes a psychological experiment about the nature of truth and the power of written words. Reading it feels like being trapped in a house where every room holds secrets, every shadow hides something sinister. The story explores how love can become obsession, how truth can become manipulation, and how words can become weapons. The moral ambiguity is suffocating. Characters aren't good or evil. They're human in the most uncomfortable, complex ways imaginable. And just when you think you know what's happening, the truth hits like a slap in the face. Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. A single mother becomes entangled with a married couple. She's drawn to the wife's vulnerability, the husband's charm. But this couple harbours secrets that defy logic, that challenge the very nature of reality itself. Nothing about them makes sense. Then the story takes a turn that's so unexpected, so impossible, that readers either love it or hate it with passionate intensity. This book has an ending so infamous that it's become a cultural phenomenon, discussed and debated endlessly online. Can you trust what you're seeing? Can you believe what's happening? Reading this is like walking through a funhouse mirror. Everything seems familiar until suddenly, violently, it isn't. The story begins as a psychological thriller about adultery and obsession, then transforms into something that defies genre classifications entirely. It explores themes of identity, possession, and the question of what makes us fundamentally ourselves. Can the self be stolen? When this ending hits, it doesn't just surprise, it rewrites the entire meaning of identity itself. The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. Two strangers meet on a plane. One suggests murdering his cheating wife, the other doesn't say no. Most people would laugh nervously, change the subject, but what if you don't? What if you listen? What if you agree? The story explores how ordinary people can slide into extraordinary evil, how casual conversations can become deadly conspiracies. Reading it feels like watching dominoes fall. Each action triggers the next, creating a chain reaction that becomes impossible to stop. Who is the killer? Who is the victim? The book examines the nature of morality through characters who justify terrible acts with reasonable-sounding logic that slowly reveals itself as insanity. The multiple perspectives create a kaleidoscope of truth where every character believes they are the hero of their own story. But when the final revelation lands, you'll realize that everyone you trusted was playing a completely different game. Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. You wake up every morning with no memory of your life. Your husband explains who you are. But something feels wrong. The details don't match the feelings. Your reflection looks strange. Can you trust the person who claims to love you? This book transforms memory loss into a prison where the bars are made of forgotten moments and unreliable narrators. Reading it is like experiencing amnesia yourself. Every day brings new information that contradicts what you thought you knew. The story explores how memory shapes identity, how truth becomes whatever story we're told most consistently and convincingly. It asks terrifying questions about dependency and trust. When you can't trust your own mind, how do you know who to believe? But what if your protector is actually your predator? The psychological horror builds slowly as gaps in the narrator's memory become chasms that threaten to swallow everything she thinks she knows. And when the truth about her husband emerges, it's more disturbing than any memory she could have forgotten. The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. You commute on the same train every day, watching houses pass by, creating stories about lives inside. One day you see something shocking through one of those windows. You try to help, but your own life is chaos, your memory is unreliable. This book weaves together three women's lives through the lens of observation, obsession, and devastating self-deception. Reading it feels like being trapped inside an unreliable narrator's fractured psyche, where truth and fantasy blur together completely. The story explores how trauma warps perception, how guilt distorts memory, and how desperation can make us see what we need to see. Each character believes she understands what's happening, but their perspectives create a puzzle where the pieces never quite fit together. It's a study of how women are perceived, judged, and dismissed, particularly when alcohol and mental health issues cloud their credibility. She drinks too much, she forgets things, and yet she's the only one who saw something no one else noticed. The unreliable narrator becomes more than a device, it becomes the point. And what she saw might be the only truth left in a sea of lies. But which version of events is real? When the final piece clicks into place, you'll realize that everything you witnessed was filtered through the lens of broken perception. Shutter Island by Dennis Lehane. Two US Marshals arrive at a remote psychiatric hospital to investigate a missing patient. The island feels wrong. The staff act strangely. The patients seem to know secrets they shouldn't. Reality itself begins to feel negotiable, unstable. This book creates an atmosphere so thick with dread that every page feels like walking deeper into a nightmare. Reading it is like being gaslit alongside the protagonist. You question everything, trust nothing, and fear the truth more than ignorance. The story explores themes of trauma, guilt, and the mind's capacity for self-deception when reality becomes too painful to accept. It asks whether madness is sometimes a mercy, whether delusion can be kinder than truth, and whether we always want to wake up. The psychiatric setting becomes a metaphor for the prison of our own minds, where the greatest escape attempts often fail. What happens when the detective becomes the mystery? The revelation doesn't just solve the case, it demolishes the very foundation of everything you believed about the story you were reading. We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. A group of wealthy teenagers spend summer on a private island, playing games and keeping poisonous secrets. An accident happens, or was it something worse? The truth becomes buried under layers of privilege, lies, and selective memory. This book presents a family drama that gradually reveals itself as something far more devastating and psychologically complex. Reading it feels like recovering from your own head injury. Memories return in fragments, not all of them reliable or welcome. The story explores how privilege can corrupt, how family loyalty can become toxic, and how guilt can rewrite history. It examines the way trauma affects memory, particularly in young people whose understanding of consequence is still developing. The beautiful island setting becomes a character itself, paradise hiding something rotten, wealth masking moral decay. How far would you go to protect the people you love? When the truth about that summer finally surfaces, it's not just shocking, it's heartbreaking in ways you never saw coming. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. You're trapped in a murder mystery that resets every day. You wake up in different bodies. Every night, Evelyn Hardcastle dies. Every morning you start over in someone else's skin, with their memories, their limitations, their secrets. This book creates a puzzle so complex that solving it becomes an obsession for both character and reader alike. Reading it feels like being trapped in a video game where the rules keep changing and the stakes grow higher with each iteration. The story explores questions of identity, justice, and whether the truth is worth pursuing when the cost might be everything you believe. It asks whether we can ever truly escape our past, or if we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes in different forms forever. The body-swapping mechanism becomes a metaphor for empathy, seeing the world through different perspectives, understanding how bias shapes experience completely. But what if solving the mystery means becoming the monster? The final twist doesn't just reveal the killer, it questions the very nature of justice, redemption, and whether some truths are worth the price of knowing them. So why do these twisted endings affect us so powerfully? Why do we crave stories that manipulate and deceive us? Perhaps because real life rarely provides clean answers. These books satisfy our hunger for resolution while acknowledging that truth is complex. Plot twists force us to become active readers. They demand we pay attention, question assumptions, and engage with stories as puzzles. They mirror the way real revelations work, how learning one fact can recontextualize an entire relationship, a whole life, everything we knew. These stories also provide a safe space to explore dark impulses and uncomfortable truths about human nature without real-world consequences. Twist endings remind us that danger doesn't always come from villains. Sometimes it comes from people who think they're saving you. The best twists don't just surprise us. They reveal something true about the human condition, something we recognized but couldn't articulate. In the end, we love these shocking revelations because they reflect life itself, unpredictable, complex, and full of truths stranger than fiction.